I'm Paul James, the Gardener Guy. Coming up today on Gardening by the Yard, a real humdinger of a show that includes a tour of my landscape with tips you might apply in your own. A piece that answers the question, do we really need lawns? A comparison of two different weed control methods, namely chemical versus mechanical. And finally, praising the power of perennials. All that and more is in store, so stay tuned. It's been about a year since I moved into my new pad, so I thought you might like a tour of the place. And along the way, I hope you'll pick up some good ideas that you can put to good use in your own landscape. So, let's get started in the vegetable garden, which is currently in a state of transition. By that I mean the cool season crops are ready to harvest, or in some cases past their prime. And that means it's time to make room for some summer stuff. But to tell you the truth, it's a miracle anything is growing here right now. Because just 4 days ago, we got 5 inches of rain in only 3 hours. And the water level at this very spot where I'm standing was nearly over my daughter Hannah's head. And Hannah's, oh, I don't know. Hannah, how tall are you?
I'm 4'1" and 3/8 inches tall.
Now that's a lot of water. But thankfully it drained pretty quickly, and most everything survived. In fact, most everything is looking pretty good. Like this bed of mesclun, a collection of greens I mixed myself, and this Japanese red mustard. And how about these taters? They'll be ready to harvest in another month. Oh, and let's not forget the strawberries, which are ready to eat right now. But just yesterday, I ripped out a bunch of collards in this bed to make room for some squash. Oh, and by the way, care to guess what I did with all those old collard plants?
Trashed them?
Nope.
Cooked them up in some bacon grease?
Wrong again.
Composted them?
Right you are, Danny. The squash I've chosen for this bed is a yellow crookneck variety, which I think is the most flavorful of all the squashes, especially when sliced, drizzled with some olive oil and balsamic vinegar, seasoned with garlic, salt, and pepper, and slapped on the grill. Seem to have a frog in my throat. I'll sow 2 hills with 5 seeds per hill, then thin all but 2 or 3 plants per hill. That should provide my family with enough squash, assuming, of course, squash bugs or the dreaded squash vine borer don't attack the plants. In a couple of weeks, I'll sow 2 more hills, and that should provide my family with plenty of squash over several weeks. Now, in this bed here, where a few clumps of Swiss chard remain, I'm going to plant some cucumbers. Oh, and by the way, care to guess what I did with all the rest of the Swiss chard?
Composted them.
Nope.
Trashed them.
Wrong again, Danny.
Cooked them up in some bacon grease.
Now you got it. I'll sow a hill or 2 of cucumbers in essentially the same way I did the squash. And the variety I've chosen has a bush-like growth habit, which means it stays relatively compact rather than send vines running all over the place. In this bed, where just the other day I harvested over 200 carrots, I'm going to plant one of my family's favorite food snacks, edamame. More commonly known as soybeans, edamame are served as an appetizer in Japanese restaurants, but they're easy to grow at home from seed. And when steamed and salted in or out of the shell, they make a mighty nutritious treat. Here in the perennial garden, I've stuck more than 150 plants in the ground, including foliage plants, flowering perennials, perennial and woody shrubs, even trees. And I must say the whole area is starting to take shape. I'm especially pleased with this spot right here, where beneath this weeping Atlas cedar, I've added a number of plants that really complement its blue-green foliage. Like this border of blue fescue, a clumping, low-growing grass. Nepeta, a member of the catmint family that takes a ton of abuse and produces lovely little blue flowers. And the similar-looking Caryopteris, a small but beautiful woody shrub with blue-green foliage and blue flowers. Higher up in the bed, I couldn't be happier with these Itea known as Henry's Garnet Sweetspire, which are interesting year-round, but are especially nice when they're in full flower, as they are now. And behind them, I've added a row of purple sand cherries that will in time fill out and contrast nicely with the gray brick wall. In the center of the row of sand cherries, which by the way will grow to about 8 feet tall, I planted this cotinus or smoke tree. It has a similar leaf color and it'll grow to about 15 feet tall. Later in the summer, it'll produce masses of pinkish gray flowers that look like billowing smoke, hence the name smoke tree. This area beneath the shade of these tall white pines was full of weeds just a few days ago, but I've cleaned it up and mulched it, and now it's ready to plant. In a way, I kind of like this barren look. It's what my director of photography, Esther, would call negative space. Very zen, huh? But because this spot gets only filtered light, and for only a few hours a day, it's the perfect spot for one of my favorite shrub families, the viburnums. So it's here that I'll house my viburnum collection, among other things. And I've already gotten a start with this arrowwood, seen here in flower, and the soon-to-be gorgeous double-file Mauritii. Okay, so it's not all that gorgeous right now, but it will be. This is Winterthur, which has a glossy leaf, rather unusual for a viburnum. My favorite of all is this one called Jedi, whose flowers are the sweetest smelling of the lot, with a gardenia-like fragrance. Now these shrubs will grow to between 3 and 8 feet at maturity, and that's exactly what I want. A low-maintenance, but beautiful and highly fragrant shrub border. And now, let me show you my favorite garden of all. It's here at the front of the house, a small, shady area where you may recall I had a giant limestone boulder installed. This spot is so soothing, so tranquil, that I find myself spending many mornings here with a really strong cup of coffee. And just as in my perennial garden, there's a lot of stuff growing here. Most of the ferns are in their second spring, and they're starting to look really good, especially this royal fern. And these tough-to-grow but gorgeous maidenhair ferns. Oh, and check out the fern-like foliage of this dicentra, a bleeding heart called snowdrift. The finely cut palmate leaves of this Japanese maple soften the boulder in the foreground, and beneath it is a happy young hellebore called sopron, with unusual palmate leaves as well. The mottled foliage of this pulmonaria is awesome, and you shade gardeners should consider planting more of these. And how about this polemonium, a variegated form known as Brise Anjou that should get at least 18 inches tall. Last but not least, look at the foliage of this Persicaria called Lance Corporal. This is a small, shade-tolerant shrub unlike any other. Later in the year, I promise I'll show you some of the coolest plants in this bed. A collection of Tricertis, or Japanese toad lilies, that look pretty good now, but are absolutely incredible when they flower in the fall. In the meantime, I hope I've given you some ideas on how to plant a garden and what to put in it. From food, to foliage, to flowers, to fun.
Brought to you by Pennington Seed, America's #1 seed.
Jill's allergies used to leave her in a fog. Now she's Claritin Clear. That means I control Jill's sneezing and itchy eyes without drowsiness.
Children's Claritin, non-drowsy relief for kids as young as 2.
There's Clear. Then there's Claritin Clear.
Hurry into Sears for the best time to buy. Your last chance on hundreds of items at the lowest prices of the season, and it ends this Saturday. Right now, all tractors are on sale. All grills and patio sets. Home appliances are on sale. All girls' dresses. Even something nice for you. It's your last chance for the lowest prices of the season. Sale ends this Saturday, because right now it's the best time to buy. And you deserve the good life. Sears, good life, great price.
Good evening. I'll take you through tonight's specials. First, we have a lovely grilled mango chicken. We also have our very popular North Atlantic baked cod, and for soup, we have a fire-roasted tomato bisque. Questions?
Introducing Boston Market's seasonal dinner specials menu. It's a rotating collection of chef-inspired creations prepared with the finest and freshest ingredients. Also that we can offer you new and exciting choices every day, like specials that are actually special.
Our finest Coca-Cola.
Boston Market. We're always cooking.
The Trek stick. Easy to care for. Beautifully enduring. For enjoyment the years can't take away. Because this should be the place time forever stands still.
Escape to the Rock with HGTV's original special, The Gardens of Alcatraz.
A lot of hidden secrets on Alcatraz, and this is one of them.
How did these gardens emerge on such a forbidding island? The Gardens of Alcatraz.
Today at 5 on HGTV. They were the toys of our childhood. Twister.
I will.
We had everything Barbie.
My favorite board game was Monopoly.
The action figures, board games, and lunchboxes that fueled our imaginations.
We'd just play in the backyard for hours and hours.
Don't miss Toys We Grew Up With. Sunday at 5 on HGTV. Home and Garden Television.
There's a growing trend in this country toward less lawn. In fact, there are some communities that will actually pay you not to plant a lawn. Instead, they encourage homeowners to use everything from native ground covers and other plants that don't require as much water, fertilizer, and gas-powered maintenance to rocks as a substitute for the traditional lawn. And make no mistake, lawns are the most resource-consuming part of most landscapes. And not just in terms of the water and chemicals we pour on them, but also in terms of the time we spend maintaining them. But are lawns really such a bad thing, as some would suggest? Well, I don't think so. And believe me, folks, I'm not a spokesperson for any professional lawn care association. As a matter of fact, when it comes to lawn care, I advocate less of everything. Whew, Maggie, you got halitosis. For example, I urge you to water only when the lawn needs it, which in most cases is once a week at the most, and to deep soak each time you water to promote a healthy root system. I urge you to cut way back on the use of fertilizer, from the often recommended 4 or 5 applications a year to only 1, preferably in the fall, and ideally in the form of an all-natural, slow-release product. I encourage the use of mulching mowers, which saves time and provide a significant amount of food for the lawn, and the application of compost as a means of feeding the lawn naturally. And I discourage the use of herbicides and other lawn chemicals, opting instead to control weeds by hand or by mowing the grass a good deal higher than usual, especially before the weeds have a chance to set seed. To combat diseases, I rely on the application of beneficial bacteria and other organisms, as well as compost. And I actually encourage some weeds in the lawn to promote biodiversity. So as you can see, I love lawns as much as the next person. However, I do believe that they should be maintained in the most environmentally friendly ways possible. In fact, I'd go so far as to suggest that the total elimination of lawns could lead to environmental disaster. After all, a mere 625 square feet of lawn provides enough oxygen for 1 person for an entire day, which means my lawn helps 100 people breathe easier. On a block of 8 average homes, front lawns have the same cooling effect as 70 tons of air conditioning. Turf grasses absorb gaseous pollutants, such as carbon dioxide and sulfur dioxide, and trap an estimated 12 tons of dirt and dust released each year into the atmosphere. A buffer zone of grass around buildings and homes helps retard the spread of fires. And lawns prevent soil erosion, reduce runoff, and filter contaminants from rainwater. In fact, lawns actually help keep our lakes and streams clean by filtering and purifying rainwater, and they do the job better than traditional ground covers or wildflowers. But being a lover of lawns doesn't necessarily mean that I think the lawn should be the focal point of the landscape. Frankly, I think landscapes that are basically all lawn are pretty boring. And eliminating some portion of the lawn with island beds can not only enhance the look of the landscape, but also cut down on lawn maintenance chores. Nor does being an advocate of lawns mean that I think you should spend every weekend maintaining one. In fact, just this year, given my crazy traveling and shooting schedule, I decided to hire a service to mow my lawn every weekend. That way I've got more time to spend with my family, as well as Maggie. Come on, girl. And for those of you who are contemplating a similar move, here are some tips on hiring a lawn care service. First, check with friends who have lawn care services and find out if they're happy with the service they're getting. Then have a look at their lawn to see if it looks good. If it doesn't, you might want to consider another company. After contacting a company, ask for a detailed list of services and costs, then decide what you want them to do. For example, if you decide to take on seasonal tasks, such as fertilization and weed control, then maybe you really only need the service to mow and trim the lawn each week during the growing season, and maybe help out with leaf removal during the dormant season. Make sure they understand exactly how you want your lawn maintained, that is, your preferred cutting height and so on, and point out areas where they need to be especially careful, such as around prized plants. Also, make sure they understand that you want all paved areas clean before they consider the job done. Next, get a written estimate that includes all costs, plus the length of service, and if possible, a renewal policy, so you'll know from one year to the next if there will be any cost increases. And finally, check references, make sure the company has adequate insurance protection, meets any state licensing requirements, and is a member of a professional organization. After having spent more than 2 decades mowing my own lawn, I must admit it was kind of weird turning the job over to someone else. And I must tell you that there are still areas of my lawn that I prefer to mow myself, and I carefully supervise all the work that's done. But having turned the task over to someone else, it's kind of nice having an extra 6 hours every Saturday to hang out in the garden, hang out with my family, or hang out with Maggie. Come here, babe. Come on. Come on, let's hang out. Yeah, baby, come on, come on.
Tonight on Design on a Dime, the team takes on a teenager's bedroom.
I can definitely do something fun and funky with this.
You won't believe the color palette.
We have pink, lavender, and fur.
It's a hip hangout even Mom likes. Design on a Dime, tonight at 10 Eastern and Pacific on HGTV.
Next time on Divine Design, Angela and Tim are moving in together, but...
The relationship is great, but the bathroom needs work.
See how the team turns a bathroom for one into a spa for two.
Oh, my! Oh, look at that!
How divine. Divine Design, tonight at 10:30 on HGTV.
It's new Crayola Color Wonder finger paints. The color only appears on Color Wonder paper, so there's less mess. Where your kids play with other things is a different story. New Color Wonder finger paints from Crayola.
You depend on your car for so much, so why not depend on the people who know it best? To keep it running stronger, performing better, to keep it genuine. With genuine Ford and Lincoln Mercury parts and service. Our factory-trained technicians know exactly what your car needs at a price you'll like. Get an oil change, inspection, and more. Just $34.95 or less. Keep it genuine. Only at Ford and Lincoln Mercury dealerships. Genuine parts, genuine service, genuine peace of mind.
Jill's allergies used to leave her in a fog. Now she's Claritin Clear. That means I control Jill's sneezing and itchy eyes without drowsiness.
Children's Claritin. Non-drowsy relief for kids as young as 2.
There's Clear. Then there's Claritin Clear.
Come in now to Sears. It's the best time to buy lawn gear at the lowest prices of the season. The Craftsman Lawn Ace mower with a fresh start system. The Lawn Tamer tractor powered by an 18 horsepower Briggs & Stratton engine. Both at the lowest prices of the season. Sears has gear experts who'll fix you up with the right products at a great price. Hurry in for the lowest prices of the season, because right now is the best time to buy lawn gear, and you deserve the good life. Sears, good life, great price.
Hey, where's the remote? You won't believe what it does with Time Warner Digital Cable. Call today and put more of the shows you want right at your fingertips. You'll get up to 200 channels of movies, sports, music, and more. Plus, with Movies on Demand, choose from the latest movies and watch them instantly. Satellite can't do that. You and your remote are in total control. Ever think that was possible? It is now.
Call now and get digital cable installed in up to 3 rooms for just $5.
From the first time you come to Moss Nursery, you'll realize that we are not just another garden center. Hi, I'm Jim Moss. I just love weird and unusual stuff. So guess what? When you come to Moss, that's what you'll see. I also love to sell weird and unusual stuff. So guess what else? If you want to buy it, you can, because it's all for sale. Come to Moss. We're not just another garden center.
Back in the old old days, homeowners had no choice but to get on their hands and knees and pull weeds out by hand, or use some sort of weeding tool. It was a tough, time-consuming task, but it did the trick, and in the process, the participant got a pretty good workout. These days, however, most homeowners prefer to control weeds using one of several different types of chemical herbicides. And applying them is so simple that the participant doesn't even break a sweat. And that got me to thinking, hey, what's wrong with this picture? After all, I think most of us would agree we need to exercise a little more. And I think most of us would agree that the fewer chemicals we dump on the environment, the better. Yet, in the midst of today's health and fitness craze and interest in cleaning up the environment, the use of chemical herbicides has actually increased. So I decided to conduct a little experiment to compare the old way of controlling weeds with the new way, that is, manual versus chemical, to determine the overall effectiveness of each and the time required to complete the process. And I chose this bed at the back of my property for the experiment. It's got a fair amount of weeds in it, both annual and perennial varieties, and I'll soon be filling it with all sorts of plants. All right, as you can see, I've divided this bed in half. On this side of the bed, Danny's going to get rid of weeds the old-fashioned way. On this side of the bed, Mike's going to get rid of weeds using a non-selective chemical herbicide, meaning one that'll kill anything that's green. All right, guys, you ready to get started? Let's do it. And to get started, all Danny has to do is grab his favorite weeding tools and have at it. Meanwhile, Mike has had to take the time to don his protective gear, including rubber boots, a special chemical applicator suit, special gloves, a respirator, and some goggles. Now, chances are you wouldn't go to this extreme to protect yourself, but maybe you should. Now Mike has to read the product label directions, carefully add the herbicide concentrate to a tank sprayer, fill the sprayer with water, and pressurize the tank. All right, Mike, you ready?
Yes.
Well, I got bad news for you. You're not ready. You see, any overspray from this herbicide, if it were to come in contact with the leaves on this azalea, it's going to kill the whole plant. So what you're going to have to do is take this tarp and cover up this entire bed of azaleas here so you don't kill them. I don't much care for the color, actually, but I still want to keep the plant. All right? So have at it. Meanwhile, let's see what Danny, look at there. Just with a simple hand tool, you're at least a third of the way done. You're going to have to hurry up, Mike. Now, I could have saved a little time here for Mike's sake and had him use a pre-mix herbicide formula, but doing so would have cost a small fortune. So instead, he's used the concentrate, which did take a little more time, but it's going to save some money. I'll give you a hand, Mike. Thanks to calm winds, Mike's now ready to spray. He uses a steady back and forth motion to ensure uniform coverage and walks backwards as he sprays so his feet, even though they're well protected, don't come in contact with the herbicide. So, how's it going, Mike?
I think I'm done.
Well, you did a great job, but I got some bad news for you. You got some cleaning up to do, okay? You got to rinse the sprayer. You got a whole bunch of stuff you got to do, and if you'll hurry, you might get it done before Danny finishes over on his side. Mike apparently forgot that he still has to rinse out his sprayer not once, but at least 3 times to make sure no residues of the herbicide remain in the tank. He then has to put everything away, while all Danny has to do is put away his tools. Actually, I didn't have the heart to tell Mike that he's still not done yet. You see, depending on the herbicide used, you have to wait anywhere from 2 to 10 days before you can plant anything for fear of contamination. So while Danny's bed is ready to plant, Mike's isn't. The results of this little experiment were rather revealing, because from start to finish, it actually took Danny less time to weed the old-fashioned way. And in the process, he burned several hundred calories and used practically every muscle in his body. The only downside to the whole thing, however, is that, well, Danny now smells like a men's locker room, whereas Mike, oh, he's still fresh and clean. The point I'm trying to make here today isn't that you shouldn't use chemical herbicides, because even though I choose not to use them, how you choose to garden is your business. And now, if you'll excuse me, I got a little planning to do, at least over here on Danny's side of the bed.
Next time on Outer Spaces, we have a wonderful surprise for this hard-working mom.
Guess what? You're getting a backyard today.
No way! See how we turn this bare backyard into a fantastic vacation destination.
Wow, this is wonderful.
Outer Spaces, Tuesday night at 8 on HGTV.
Welcome back to DIY, the Do-It-Yourself Network. We're ready to install a new window pane. To get a watertight seal, this next step is crucial. Make sure the column apply a sealant around there.
Sorry, Mr. Keeper.
And you're all set.
Miss a step on TV? Don't worry. DIY, the new Do-It-Yourself network, is always there for you online. Thousands of projects. For more information, visit DIYnetwork.com.
Hello. Right. Absolutely. You'll see in a bit. That was Bob and Marie. The dinner is tonight.
I thought it was next week.
No, they're on their way.
Let's go.
For the way you live your life, it's a comfort to know you're piloting a fine-tuned machine. One that performs beautifully and makes you look good, too. The DigiPro from Bissell, the canister vacuum redesigned for the 21st century with innovation, sophistication, and ultra-sleek styling. And with a grace and maneuverability unmatched by other vacuums. Precision handling takes tight curves and gets you places you might avoid with a lesser machine. The Bissell DigiPro glides effortlessly from room to room.
I could have sworn it was next week.
Me too.
With 12 amps of power and the Dirt Lifter Power Brush, you get serious deep-down cleaning. Under the hood, a perfectly balanced set of attachments for every terrain. Cleaning stairs has never been so simple. The fully rotating hose is easy to manage, and the canister rides low to the ground, so it won't tip over.
You'll get that.
You'll get that.
And for the Bissell DigiPro, high places are easy to reach. Digital sensor technology automatically adjusts airflow to the surface you're cleaning, providing just the right amount of suction for the task at hand. Or you may prefer the precise control of a manual shift. And when traveling over delicate hardwood floors, feel free to turn off the power brush. Wow. This is cleaning at its most versatile, its most efficient. Feel the exhilaration. Feel what it's like to leave ordinary vacuums in the dust.
Hi!
The DigiPro from Bissell. From now on, it's the only vacuum you'll ever drive. Find the DigiPro at your nearest Kohl's store. Order online by visiting kohls.com/DigiPro or call 1-866-863-6112.
Spring cleaning starts right now with a trip to HGTV.com.
I'm forever amazed at how plants flourish, especially when they like where they're planted and get plenty of food and water. And the most amazing of the lot are the perennials, which just kind of sit there the first year after planting, but by the second year begin to really take off. Let me show you some examples of what I'm talking about. This is a bed full of Chasmanthium latifolia, also known as northern sea oats. I planted these last year as 1-gallon plants, and look at them now. Practically everyone that comes over asks,
What are they? And where can I get them?
and how about this Buddleia, or butterfly bush? I planted it last year, and you may recall me demonstrating how to prune it to the ground just a few weeks ago. Well, now it's growing like wild and will soon be in flower. Here's a purple coneflower I planted just a few days ago. And here's the same variety that just last year was the same size. Ditto this penstemon called Husker Red. Here's this year's planting, and here's last year's. And finally, this eupatorium called chocolate snakeroot started out small last year, and this year is growing like gangbusters. I could easily show you dozens more examples of what I'm talking about, but I think you get the idea. And I hope you'll keep in mind the fact that while creating a great garden does indeed take some time, it doesn't take near as much time as you might think, especially when you've got perennial power on your side. Well, I promised you a real humdinger of a show, and I hope you think I delivered. By the way, I want to thank each and every one of you for taking a half hour out of your day to watch my show, because if it weren't for folks like you, I'd have to get a real job. I'm Paul James, the Gardener Guy for Gardening by the Yard. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.